Alright, so here we go again. Got my favorite Harley Davidson shirt on, built for speed, but alright, here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is play through the entire 12-bar blues utilizing this sort of style, right? Remember, the amount of bars that you play and the amount of time, to simplify it, the amount of time you spend on each chord is really important, right? So I'm just playing this sort of style, first finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, going to the 4th fret of the A string with the 3rd finger, and the 2 notes that I'm playing, or the 2 strings that I'm playing, are just the bottom 2 strings. When we go to the A chord, I'm just playing the next set of strings down, which is the A string and the D string. Back to the E chord. And when I go to the B, it gets a little more complicated, right? Because I'm going to play 2nd fret on the A string with my 1st finger, 4th fret on the D string with my 3rd finger, and then I'm going to stretch out with my pinky to the 6th fret on the D string. That's too hard for you. You can just play just these 2 notes, just like that, right? So I'm going to play through the whole 12-bar blues. I'm going to go around twice, and I'm going to count it out so that you can actually get a feel for how many bars of each chord and all that sort of stuff, right? So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4. 4, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4. 4, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4. 4, 2, 3, 4. And back to the beginning. Alright, so now I'm gonna play it one more time, but I'm just gonna say the bar that I've completed. I'm just gonna count up to 12. Immediately after I finish a bar, I'll say the number of the bar that I just completed. That way you can kind of hopefully get a feel for what chord is actually in each bar. Hopefully this is gonna make some sense. So here we go, one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now we're back to the beginning. Alright, so hopefully that makes some sort of sense. Remember, the correct timing, the correct number of beats, correct number of bars, all that stuff is wildly important. You have to have this sort of thing down before you move on to anything else, I would say. Because if you start trying to incorporate turnarounds and all these licks, start trying to incorporate all that stuff before you have the basic, super robotic, like fundamental, rudimentary version figured out, you're not gonna have an idea of where all those licks are actually supposed to be, right? So I think it's really helpful to play along with a metronome, or at the very least stomp your foot and count it, and to try to get a feel for the blues. And remember, this sort of rhythm, you kind of have to feel it. There is, I'm sure, you know, someone has a way of writing it down correctly. I certainly don't know enough musical theoretical knowledge to, you know, write it down correctly, but it's what you would call a shuffle. So it's something that you kind of have to just get the feel for, right? You know, listen to a lot of music and just sort of figure out that style of rhythm. Try to feel it as best you can, right? But the overarching rhythm is all just 4/4 time. You know, you can play it as fast or as slow as you want. I also think it's helpful to play the last 4 bars or last 8 bars of the progression kind of over and over again, because the first 8 bars really are pretty simple, right? It's just 4 bars of E, 2 bars of A, 2 bars of E again, right? That's pretty simple. What confuses most people is the last 4 bars, really, because the chord is changing every bar. And then you have to go straight back to the beginning and start your count all over again, right? So you might want to practice that for a while too. Just play those last 4 bars. Or maybe go back to the E for like 2 bars and then play those last 4 bars again. Right? Just to give you some ideas of how to practice that. You can just play this progression with chords, right? You know, just with the E, A, B7. You can do this with just like an acoustic strumming pattern. You know, it might sound a little better on acoustic guitar, but you can do this, right? 2, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not really super good at, for whatever reason, I was kind of screwing up the counting there, but hopefully you get the idea. I'll try to run through that one more time. Just acoustic strumming, perhaps a little bit slower, so you can try to work it out a little better. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so you could just play it like that. Just play the chords you already know. If you wanted to play it with all 7 chords, you could do that too. Just use your E7, A7, and B7, you know, just off of any old chord chart. Might give you a little more earthy, kind of bluesy feel. Playing the regular E and the regular A might be more of like a, you know, more of a country music feel. Certainly all those chords have been used in, you know, all the genres, but you can mix and match them as you please. But that's one way of, you know, kind of mixing it up. You can, you know, just play the progression with chords. I do want to talk about the technique that I use on this sort of thing before we go much further, right? There's some trickery involved here. So when I'm on the E, right, my first finger is muting all the strings below the A string. Now what this creates is you can indiscriminately hit all of the strings when you're playing this. You don't have to be like super duper accurate with your pick. only getting the notes that I want out of the guitar, right? That takes some practice, but you can certainly do it. The other thing going on is a lot of times I'll be palm muting, which means I'll put my palm kind of right at the area, kind of right here, right at the edge of where the string starts to actually vibrate. I'll try to kind of go from no mute to muted. To help you get more of a rhythm sort of sound instead of just having this kind of big lumbering like sort of sound, you know, that's just super out there and kind of flabby. Helps you get more of that percussive sort of rhythm tone, which is used a lot in this sort of style of playing guitar. Now when you go to the A chord, same thing, my first finger is muting the strings below the D string. And I think subconsciously my thumb is kind of muting the E string, but usually I try to be a little more accurate with my pick so I'm not actually hitting the E string. Right, so that's one thing to keep in mind there. And when I go to the B, same thing. My first finger is muting those 3 strings, and the tip, this is pretty common in like when you're playing power chords, the tip of my first finger is muting the E string. Alright, so the only 2 notes I'm actually getting out of the guitar are these 2 notes. So that's some technique for you to help you play this stuff, you know, as clean as you possibly can. Now once again, remember, if that stretch is too hard for you, you can literally just play these 2 notes, the same rhythm, and it's still gonna work, right? So hopefully you can see that, right? And especially in like a band context, you wouldn't even notice that. You wouldn't even really notice that the guitar player's not doing the stretchy thing, right? You know, you could cheat it. It would be fine. The other thing that you could do to kind of incorporate using chords into this style of playing is every time it goes to a B7 chord, just play the chord instead of playing the chugga chugga thing, right? This is kind of an introductory to like all these variations, right? So I'll play the last 4 bars. I'll play the last 8 bars so that you can kind of get a feel for that. Straight back to the beginning. So hopefully that makes some sort of sense, right? You can just take one of the chords. I think the B is pretty easy to do this on. Then just replace that with the B7 chord, and that'll be kind of an introductory to doing all the little variations, right? I could go on for absolute days on all, you know, kinds of different variations, like all this sort of stuff. Right, but stuff like that is what you will pick up along the way, right? If you've heard the blues and you've listened to blues music, you've heard all that stuff, you're familiar with the sound. But what you really need to have is a strong foundation of what the rhythm of this 12-part blues is, and how the format actually lays out, and how much time is actually spent on each chord, how the 12-bar blues is actually constructed. especially in the last 4 bars. I did this a lot when I was a beginner too. You get to the last 4 bars, you start hitting that B, and that's usually in the blues, and a whole bunch of stuff starts happening, you know, especially in the last 2 bars, the E and the last B. You know, that's when the turnaround happens. There's usually licks going on and all kinds of crazy stuff, drum fills, whatever, right? Singer wailing, all that stuff. And that's all cool, but you don't have to play any of that stuff, right? If you just play the last 4 bars the way I've been playing it, I'm sorry, try that again. Now back to the beginning. That's a completely acceptable way of playing the last 4 bars of the blues. Granted, it's not super complicated, but if you're playing it in time, you're playing it, you know, on beat and everything, then it's totally cool, good to go. What you don't want is to get to that B chord, start playing some lick that you're not comfortable with, you lose track of the time, and now all the feel is gone, and now you're lost, right? You know, so start super simple, you know. Replace when you get done with the chugga thing and you have your technique down, rhythm, time, all that stuff, you know, try replacing just one of the chords with the actual chord. I would try like maybe B7. You could do A7 as well. Just replace one of those with the actual chord, and that'll be kind of the start of like your sort of variations, right? I wouldn't worry about turnarounds or any of that stuff right now. You need to get the feel down and the timing, the rhythm, and then once you have all that down and it's so ingrained in you that you can just play it without even counting or doing nothing, no metronome, whatever, you totally have a feel for the blues. Then at that point, adding all that other stuff becomes way easier. And then you can start adding, you know, all these turnarounds, all kinds of crazy stuff. You can start adding all that stuff. But yeah, so hopefully that helps. Just try to make it as simple as possible for yourself. Just focus on the technique on that chugga thing. You know, try to have good muting, practice your palm muting. You know, you're practicing a lot of different techniques here, you know, at one time. Eventually you may want to stray away from this. You know, I wouldn't worry about what I'm about to say right now. It's something I want to just give you some exposure to. This can get to show you how far you can stray away from this sort of sound but still be in the 12-bar format. Once you get to the point where you know a lot of the dominant 7 chords around the neck and you don't really want to play the chugga thing all the time, you can start playing stuff like this. Now, what I'm about to play is the exact same format. It's still a 12-bar blues, right? Hopefully there you can get an idea of how deep this can go, and all I'm doing is kind of banging away on some chords, but it's still the exact same format. It's still a 12-bar blues, right? So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll catch you on the next one.